Doogie.
Sam.
The January transfer window is just around the corner. Well, it's in a month. And it's got my brain whirring. Who is the next midfield superstar? And could they attract any winter drama?
Assan Ouédraogo is, in my opinion, underlining the tag that he is the most outstanding German talent, period.
If he stays fit and continues to play like this, Wharton will go to an elite club for at least £100 million. Like, he's that much of a special unicorn player.
I'll put my neck out. I think that Victor Froholdt is going to be an absolute world beater.
Elliot Anderson could be the next £100 million midfielder. He just seems to adapt to whatever he comes into.
Kenan Yıldız, a superstar in the making. He's got, I think, the highest ceiling out of Serie A, where you can look at that guy and be like, that guy, 5 years down the line, is one of the household names that every soccer fan knows.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Truth. I'm your host, Sam Tighe. You already know that, because one, you can hear my voice, and two, the teaser at the top of the podcast was 45 minutes shorter than whenever Doogie Critchley does it. Speaking of, hello Doogie.
It was a long one last week, wasn't it?
And the last one you did was even longer. Short and snappy, that was the directive.
Short and snappy,
then he writes an article out and then reads it.
I failed on that last week, didn't I? Yeah, it was quite long. I am good. My spirits are increasing as the hours pass that I get away mentally and spiritually from what went down at Craven Cottage at the weekend in another Truth derby between Sunderland and Fulham. Yep. Sunderland were atrocious. I didn't think Fulham were great, but they were significantly better. It was a miserable performance from Sunderland and a little bit troubling because we've got a difficult run, as I keep on saying. But yeah, Jack's side took us to the cleaners.
Yeah, we'll dig into that in a moment. But before we do that, first of all, back in the studio this week. Yes. We were not in the studio last week. The schedules just would not align, which of all the weeks for that not to happen, the international break, it's bizarre that couldn't happen. Like, if I was ever going to back a week where we'd all just be available.
You are a father, though.
Sure, blame the kid. Blame the kid. But we are back. And let's introduce our producer, Morgoth himself, the first Dark Lord. And the primordial source of evil in these parts, it's Jack Collins.
Thank you, Sam. Always a pleasure. I've always thought myself as an elf, really, but actually, I'll take a fallen elf, if you will.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. I just got back from Portugal, so I actually wasn't at the cottage to witness our win, but I did go and see Porto against Sintrenza in the fourth round of the Taça de Portugal, which, makes up for all of the losses of not being there for one of Fulham's very few victories this season.
Oh, yeah. There might be a couple more, you don't know that.
You never know.
It's good to see you've turned the corner, luck-wise.
It felt a bit like it, right? Like, I'm sure there were plenty of Sunderland fans who had complaints about the refereeing, although I think that actually it's best to clear the old wood from your eyes before you start complaining about the forest. I'm pretty sure that's not the analogy. But Fulham weren't great. I actually agree with Doogie, but we were much better than Sunderland, who just really didn't turn up. And you know what? In those conditions, I was expecting a Sunderland masterclass. With that blackout kit, I was like, this is business. This is smart. And I don't know what happened in the international break, but Sunderland not at the races, and a much needed 3 points. So thank you, Doogie. I do appreciate it.
You could tell Doogie was really annoyed about this because he decided to take issue with Enzo Lefebvre's all-black look, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah,
he looked so sleek. And you were like, hate it. And that's how I know that the whole day was just miserable for you, because you could take issue with even the best part of Sunderland's performance, which was Enzo looking awesome.
I think we were discussing this on Sunday morning when I was a bit sad, a bit hungover, and probably just still a bit wet inside and out. I mean, inside being wet sounds a bit weird, but whatever. It poured on us in the away end. I don't really like gloves on a footballer, personally, and I don't really like tights on a footballer.
Maybe what about short sleeves and gloves?
Yeah, that's slightly better. I didn't love it as a look. But to be honest, Enzo Lefebvre was not the biggest issue. He actually seemed like one of the few players that was up for it. Actually, and I've given him so much praise this year, Granit Xhaka wasn't great, and neither was Siddiqui alongside him.
Oh dear. Was it definitely tights he was wearing, or was it just very, very long socks and very long shorts?
I think it was leggings.
I think it was leggings.
Right, okay. Well, either way, I thought he looked like a Decepticon, so I thought he looked great. Right, speaking of football in the rain, while you guys were at Craven Cottage, one of you was at Craven Cottage, I was at the Valley, Charlton Athletic.
Good ground.
Good fun. Oh, it's a great ground. This is great fun. So I decided to go and watch Charlton against Southampton because it was the early kickoff Saturday. Nice slot. It's very close to my house, so I can get back in time for the 3 p.m s. And my neighbour's a season ticket holder, so I thought I'll go with my neighbour. That'd be a nice thing to do.
Lovely.
My nice neighbour Ollie. On the way there, Ollie spoke to me and told me very proudly about how Charlton had lost just once that year at home and recently had beaten Ipswich Town 3-0. And those of you that aren't paying attention to the Championship but do know, Ipswich obviously recently relegated, so a strong team. We then sat there in the pouring rain in the first row and watched Southampton score 5 goals in about 45 minutes. And just the shock around the stadium was incredible. The other great bit about this was the fact that Charlton's manager Nathan Jones was famously ditched by Southampton after about a month and a half in the Premier League. Nathan Jones, the only man that was able to stand between Pep Guardiola and a quadruple, but was not fit for purpose in any other way. So the away end had a wonderful time serenading him with songs. The great bit was the gallows humour that followed. So obviously there's a lot of shock here. If you don't lose at home very often at all, like once a year, then to go 5 down, it was 5-1 at half time. They got one in stoppage time in the first half. It's really shocking, right? And I was looking around and I think my journalistic brain was working because I don't really have a horse in the race. I don't work for Saints anymore. I don't really care what happens. But just looking around and just collecting the stories. And I was looking at people just like shaking their heads to themselves, like the muttered conversations where everybody was just like in disbelief. I saw a young lady phone her dad and be like, "Dad, we're 5 down." And I just heard, "What?" through the phone. And then I went to queue for a beer and the guy in front of me tried to order a pint of bleach.
That's very
and
good.
He turned around and grinned at me. It was phenomenal. But football in the rain, funny things happen.
It is funny when it's so bad that it then gets into this kind of humour zone and everyone starts kind of taking the piss out of their own side. I do enjoy that.
Proper football weather a lot of the time this weekend, I thought.
Yeah.
You know, like proper. We saw it in the game between Leeds and Villa.
Yeah, it was horrible. The pitch looked so bad. Oh, the ball wasn't rolling.
Bournemouth, West Ham, proper football weather. Fulham, Sunderland.
Callum Wilson doesn't score that goal in the sunshine, does he?
Absolutely not. Not in a million years.
No chance.
And I was at it was a very cloudy, very dry Dragal as the evening set. It was beautiful in many ways. So I didn't get to experience it, but I'll be back next week.
Speaking of other sort of weird instances, this weekend I was doing Sky socials at the North London derby, and myself and my colleague Freddie were sort of positioned right behind the goal in the kind of gap between the Arsenal and the Spurs fans. Great place to be for a North London derby. But the apathy amongst Spurs fans, or the lack of interest that greeted that Richarlison goal, which you totally understand given the context of the game, but they no one even looked remotely happy or pleased that they'd scored. It was so bizarre. And then to watch them drip feed out, and then by eventually just a kind of torrent of exits out the Spurs end, and the Arsenal fans just having the best time, just waving them. You can imagine all sorts of signs being sent their way as well. I felt very sorry for Spurs fans, to be totally honest, to have to watch that performance in your biggest game of the season, having already a couple of weeks ago been so terrible in your other big game of the season against Chelsea. Miserable.
Yeah, some pretty gutless stuff. I have to say, I've written in my intro here, note, my Thomas Frank skepticism looks smarter by the day. Go ahead and ignore all the other dumb stuff I say, but do pay attention to the Thomas Frank skepticism because it's starting to look pretty good. And finally, before we get to business, Monday night saw the birth of a 4th category for the luck index. I mean, Christ, we talked about it all last week and I had a very clear set of methodologies. I said, these are the 3 things I'm looking for. This is what I've ironed out. This is what's going to be deciding it. Little did I know, 2 teammates were going to start fighting, get each other sent off. I mean, that is what literally hasn't happened since 2008. The commentator was saying Ricardo Fuller, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember that at all. I remember the one before that, obviously, the Newcastle situation with Lee Bowyer. Because
much more aggressive, that
it was against Villa. So Villa went on to win that game 3-0 against
Gareth Barry, actually, that goes and separates them?
Yes, it's Barry that separates them. So, St James's Park, tough place to go. Unless 2 of them get sent off for fighting. And this was a crazy situation for Everton to find themselves in. And this is absolutely a point for Man United in the luck index. You can't ask for a better situation than that. Still messed it up.
Yeah, they were dreadful. The lack of dynamism in that team and how rigid they are in their system, it's so uninspiring to watch. The weird thing about this is it took actually quite a few replays to really see the full effect of it. And then there's one angle where Idrissa Gueye clearly strikes him in the face. But it wasn't nuts. It wasn't like a truly violent scenario, but it was very, very stupid.
I wouldn't have sent him off personally. I think I could have got that sorted without handing out any red cards.
Yeah, David Moyes saying he quite likes it when his players fight as well, but that was a bit off, I thought.
Well, Amorim came out afterwards and was like, we could do with a bit of that. That was genuinely very funny. But like, it is one of those, I think you have to give him a red card. Like, if you slapped an opponent in like that, you would 100% give him a red card. And so whilst I appreciate that it's soft, like, and I absolutely do take that, like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? Like,
2 weeks in a row.
There you go, we're getting it in. The catchphrase is in. That was the stupidest of all stupid games, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you know who's perfect for the role of separator as well? Jordan Pickford. He just feels like he should be a club bouncer when he retires. He's so good at that sort of thing. And Gay was still trying to get at him as he was kind of dragging him away. It was great.
Yeah, I think so. I think Jordan Pickford wrestles tigers in his spare time. The way he had a handle on it, just the Gay there. He had all the moves preempted. Amazing stuff. Right, let's get into it then. But let's just read off the official table, not the Premier League table, not the XG table, the most important table there is, which reads Sam, 4 points, draw with Sunderland, beat Fulham. Jack, 3 points, beat Sunderland. Doogie, 1 point.
Not
Lost
ideal.
to Fulham, got the draw with Villa.
Yeah, we did have 10 men against you guys. Maybe we could have had more.
Sorry,
but
not important.
That counts in the luck index.
No,
Not in this game, I'm afraid, mate.
No, it doesn't. If Ronaldo's going to kick cash in the crotch, that's not luck index, mate.
Yeah, that was a clear
That's
rest.
you,
That was a clear
you bought
rest.
Ronaldo, now you deal with the
That's
circumstances.
frustrating, actually. Okay, we need to get that going in the second half of the season.
This is the major problem for you guys right
Truth
now.
table.
Right, let's talk about midfield superstars. And given that we've just been talking about Man United, I feel like they're going to be in the conversation here for any or all of these players. They're certainly going to be heading into January looking for reinforcements, as are a number of other teams around the top of Europe as well. So some of these names will probably, well, they already have been linked to United and co. They will continue to be so. So I think if you're listening and if you don't know these players inside out, you'll get a lot from this. If you haven't heard of them, well, you'll probably see a link to them in about a week anyway. So might as well get to know them. Doogie, how do you want to start this off? What's our criteria?
Criteria is, I think we're kind of tied between, in terms of the sort of title or energy of this, it's who's going to emerge into that superstar category. We've seen players like Jude Bellingham reach it in the last few years. Moises Caicedo, I think, is now probably a superstar midfielder. Same with Declan Rice. There are so many countless examples, but it's the kind of rung below at the moment, or even maybe 2 rungs below that, who have the potential to cost maybe £80 million plus in the next couple of years, that are going to be wanted by potentially a Champions League contender in the next few years. And I think there are some very interesting names to discuss. I mean, on the topic of Man United, they might well be sniffing around, but it's interesting to think that if we did this podcast in July 2024, we'd probably include Kobbie Mainoo, who now can't really get a look in under the current management. So things can change fast.
They can, yeah. In Kobbie Mainoo's situation, very badly. He got a huge cheer on Monday when he came on. Fans are desperate to see him. They don't get to see very much of him.
Can he outlast Amorim, or does he need to move?
I don't know.
It's another podcast.
We will have to see. Okay, I'll kick things off.
Why not?
And I'll go with Premier League proven, and I'll go with someone who has already been linked to Man United, and is on the verge of seemingly costing like a genuinely eye-watering sum. It'll be interesting to see exactly where this gets to. It's Elliot Anderson, the player I love talking about. Obviously, the guy who proved me massively wrong. Love talking about them. But he's starting to get £100 million transfer hype. Genuinely. It's the price has been set clearly by Forest informally, because all the reporting around Elliot Anderson is £100 million. January plays into that. It's a bit of an emergency situation. If you're looking to buy a midfielder for that much money in January, you are going to be paying over the odds. I found it an interesting exercise in my mind to try and get to the point, like, where do I actually value him? Like, and why do I value him in that way? So, Anderson, homegrown, just turned 23, just under 100 Premier League appearances. So, clearly experienced and knows exactly what's happening at this level. Is getting European experience this season and England international experience this season. It's been a hell of a campaign for him so far. But about the right age here to consider spending a hell of a lot of money on. He's not 18, he's not 19, he's not 27. He's right in that range. And 100 appearances is enough, but not too many, really. He's not like one of those sort of like he's been in it. He's not a Pedri situation where he's been playing 6 years in a row. It's surprising that he hasn't got that many games under his belt. So I think that's a positive here, based on from a consideration of longevity. So there's 3 skill sets here that I've got for him that I combine together and that I love. The first is the physicality. He pounds around the pitch. Like, he is tenacious. And I didn't actually notice this until Villa played Forest last season, and he just bullied Villa's midfield. And I thought, he plays with such strength. He goes into duels with such like considered but controlled force. He's really scary to play against. The way he pounds around it is brilliant. So he certainly sets a tone, and he certainly covers the ground. Second bit is the ball retention under pressure. Like, look at the volume of passes that he is able to take. For England, it's really shown through. But in that weird Ange period at Forest, it was only 39 days, but at a certain point in there, he was top of the Premier League, all the Premier League, for passes attempted and passes completed. So for a player to be grounded in that kind of Nuno reactive system, to be very, very able to play and handle that many passes, just speaks to, I think, the mentality, but also the skill set. And then the third point is actually the range of passing is I think I underestimated that too. He's got an assist this season for a beautiful through ball off a quick free kick. Perfect weight, perfect flight. He's just great, isn't he? He's just great. And so with all of that considered, the homegrown, 23, good amount of appearances, good mindset, all those skills, it's a lot of ticks. And the price that it goes up and up and up and up. And I would say that he is a minimum, absolute minimum £60 million player. And that's too cheap. Realistically, I think he might be a £75 million player. Of course, that would mean that, based on the fact that Forest don't want to sell, I can see how it ends up ticking up towards 100, and the price point will end up somewhere between 75 and 100. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. It feels like he's more experienced than someone like a Moises Caicedo, who eventually Brighton, who are expert negotiators, but they got that fee right up, didn't they? I always like to look at who they've been educated under, and the fact that he's worked under Eddie Howe, Nuno, and Thomas Tuchel. That feels like a really diverse set of managers. Like,
yes,
you've got the kind of energy and intensity of an Eddie Howe system. Nuno much more defensive, reactive, as you say. Ange is much more possession-based. Tuchel kind of brings a little bit of multiple different facets, and the amount of education tactically he'll be getting under Tuchel, that's really, really exciting.
I think the Tuchel thing is about being able to learning to and being able to control a game, so control the tempo of a game, which I don't really think he would have been given the opportunity to do under any of the other managers, and mostly because it was such a short-lived experience. But Howe is all about intensity and Nuno is reactiveness. So being able to play for Tuchel and being able to manage the tempo of the game is it's another tick, and that he's been able to show us that he can do that in a situation. Otherwise, if he wasn't playing for England, we would never really know that he could do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the player that he's going to be in the next 6 months, maybe even a bit longer, maybe next few years, directly compared to whether that's fair or not, because I do think they're slightly different players, is Adam Wharton, because this is the big debate, particularly online, about who should start for England, Adam Wharton or Elliot Anderson, to allow Declan Rice to play the box-to-box role that he does so effectively for Arsenal. Adam Wharton, for me, I'm just so excited about where this guy could go. I don't think he's actually there yet, and mainly that's due to the lack of games that he's played compared to a lot of players of his age. And Elliot Anderson is 2 years older, he's 23, Adam Wharton's 21. Adam Wharton's actually had a relatively injury hit time at Palace.
Is he injury prone, or did he just have a groin issue that eventually needed surgery and that was that?
Exactly, he missed 21 games, but there has been a few other sort of small cases that have kept him out for 2 or 3 games up until this season, where he's been much more regular in this side. So last year, as we say, groin issue kept him out from November to February. This season, though, he started 10 of 12 Palace games. And Palace, like Brentford, I was looking at this earlier, have had amazing consistency of selection this year compared to previous years where Palace have actually been quite unlucky with injury. This year, very, very solid. And it's kind of gone under the radar, a bit like Brighton being in 6th, and Villa have flown up the table, as well, as I'm sure you'll no doubt love to mention. Palace are currently 5th, and they're only 3 points off second place Chelsea. And in terms of underlying numbers, which we discussed a lot in terms of relegation, Palace are really good.
Yeah.
Really good. They are the biggest underperformer of XG in the entire league. And actually Mateta, who had a great record in terms of scoring, could have even scored more, for sure. And only Arsenal have lost fewer than their 2 league games to date. So in terms of what Wharton is doing to contribute to this, he is their 10th most used player this term, which I do find interesting. He's not necessarily a nailed on. Well, he's a nailed on starter when he's fit, but they're still managing his minutes. I think it's fair to say
he's just missed about 3 games. That's it. But the rest of them haven't missed any games.
Exactly, and he's not. Unlike an Anderson who showed under Ange that he could do this, and maybe Wharton could if he was asked to, he's not a metronome type for me. He only completes 33 passes per game, which is comparatively low. The top sort of João Neves, Rodri's of the past 4 or 5 years in terms of metronomes, they'll be up above 90, 95, 100 even. Pedri too. But what he is very, very forward thinking.
Yeah, you can't be a metronome if you're obsessed with through balls. It's just not possible.
Exactly. So he's at 5.9 progressive passes per game. So a progressive pass is a pass that goes 10 yards towards the opponent's goal. And he only completes 33 passes per game. So that means 18% of his passes are progressive. So for a little bit of context, Vitinha, the best progressive passer, at least gets through the most volume of it in the entirety of Europe. He's completed 136 this season. But he completes 125 passes per game. So 11% of his passes, compared to Wharton's 18%, are deemed progressive. So Wharton is, there might be someone with a higher percentage, but I imagine in Europe will have one of the highest forward-thinking sort of types of pass on him. And he's also really creative now as well, something that I don't think Anderson necessarily has to the same extent. Wharton, I feel like he could develop more into a sort of transition from middle third to final third and be useful in the final third player. I don't think he's going to be a sort of sitting 6 going forward. This season, he's at 0.27 expected assists per 90, up from 0.21. 0.27 is the same as Bukayo Saka this year. It's only topped by 7 players in the Premier League, none of which are midfielders. So this guy, in terms of threading that ball through, picking out passes, really, really top. The only midfielders in Europe that can top that are players like Fermin Lopez, who's been brilliant for Barcelona amidst a number of injuries. He's probably been their best attacking player, at least most consistent one. Arda Güler as well, and Matt O'Reilly, who's been brilliant for Marseille since joining from Brighton. Not a massive defensive output guy, Adam Wharton, but I do think that skill set of being so forward-thinking suits a number of clubs around the world. And in terms of where he goes next, it's very difficult to say for sure. I mean, Palace fans will obviously be desperate to keep him. They're going to lose Mark Gehi at some stage. They've lost Eze, they've lost Elise. It does feel inevitable that a Champions League club is going to come for him.
Yeah. I did speak to a couple of Palace fans about this, and the reply I got was basically the fans have effectively made their peace with the fact that he will be going at some point. Like, they're just like, it's one of those like enjoy him while you can situations. They know that he's unbelievable. They know better than anybody that he's unbelievable. And it's that quick turn and pass, and just the way he takes almost no time at all to receive, look up and thread. It's dreamy. And
very un-English.
Sorry, but you can just picture him feeding Mbappe. Like, it's obviously going to be like what he does for Mateta is incredible. Imagine what he could do for the best strikers in the world. And that's why Real Madrid got linked with him last summer as a tentative, sort of let's have a look situation. Man United obviously all over it. Arsenal and Liverpool have all been linked. I get it. I completely get it, because it's just that one skill that is even remotely approaching that Toni Kroos zone is we have to have a look at him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that the potential is there. I sometimes like to think, who does a player kind of remind me of? And I do think this guy's got better defensive output. But Wharton can also dribble pretty effectively as well. He's a little bit Camavinga-y in my eyes, at least. And maybe it's just the fact they're both left-footed, etc. But I think Camavinga at his absolute best does think forward very quickly as well. Camavinga probably bigger defensive output for sure.
Quite a bit bigger on the defensive side of things, I would say, yeah, for sure.
Just before you move on, if you were you're talking about 2 English midfielders here, 2 young English midfielders, and Elliot Anderson and Adam Wharton. If you were going to pick one up, and I know it obviously depends on what club you're signing them for, etc. What role you want them to do. But if you had to pick one of them, who would you be picking?
Yeah, I mean, it does depend. It's very much a how long is a piece of string question, as always with these things. I shade towards Anderson. I really do. I love Wharton's vision and through balls and that sort of turn and go ability with the ball, but I don't know, man. I just look at the physical nature of the Premier League these days, and I just think Anderson fits the bill. Like, he's so durable in a way that Adam Wharton, like, maybe isn't. And that actually might be harsh of me to say, because it might have just been one of those persistent groin things that he should have got rid of really quickly. I'm not convinced he's actually injury prone, but he's more frail than the block of granite that we're talking about in the form of Elliot Anderson here. So I would take him.
I would too. I think Elliot Anderson can fulfill a number of different roles, and that's really useful in any squad in 2025. So for that reason only, even though I probably prefer to watch Adam Wharton play, I think if I had to spend £80 million plus on either of them, it's probably Elliot Anderson.
Is that the answer you wanted, Jack?
I was expecting you to disagree. I thought Doogie would shade Wharton.
Yeah.
I would also take Anderson.
Well, there you go.
I think as a shapeshifter, he has so much to offer. And look, one of my favourite players on the planet is Mikel Merino, right? And I'm not saying that Anderson could go and play as a number 9 for someone, but like, I love what Mikel Merino does in terms of when you ask him to be a 6 and be like, cut out the attacking bit of your game, you just literally be the 6. He just goes and does it. Like manager's dream kind of players. And I think Anderson is approaching similar levels, maybe not to the same extent that Merino can play 5 roles. But if you ask Anderson to just sit and be the 6, I think he'll sit and be the 6. I think if you ask him to go and be a box-to-box 8 and get into those areas and drive forward, and we've seen some of that progressive passing ability as well already. I really, really like the way that he shifts shape. And I think if you were looking for someone, if you were a Manchester United or you were a team that were in need of someone to kind of bolster that midfield and be a starting piece, no matter who you brought in around them, that I think is probably what gives Anderson the edge for me. And that's not to kind of dunk on Wharton at all.
No. But I think he can platform others in a way that maybe Wharton doesn't. So like if you did drop him into that Man United midfield, would he solve quite a lot of the problems? Yeah, he probably would. He'd cover the ground. He would lessen the load on Bruno. He would also thread the balls through, so he'd probably do an awful lot for you. So he'll make your existing plays better too. And that's, again, not a slight on Wharton, but just built slightly differently, I think, in terms of the roles they play. Right, I'm going to take us to the Bundesliga.
Let's go.
And I'm so scared of this name. Why? I'm so scared of saying this name.
Oh, I know who you're going.
I was going to say I'd put £100 on who you're going to say right now.
There's very few names that freak me out in football because I spend a lot of time paying attention to it, doing my due diligence, but there are some that you just struggle with. And Assan Ouédraogo, even the Bundesliga commentators all say it differently. I've been watching the clips through, and there's 3 different commentators.
Take Derek Ray's lead. Always take Derek Ray's lead.
Assan Ouédraogo. Let's go with that.
Let's go with it.
For RB Leipzig. Jack, you talked about him a couple of weeks ago on one of the Ranks podcasts. Yeah. Clearly you're impressed. I am too. Since you spoke about him, he's made even more waves. He's gone on to make his Germany senior debut. He's gone on to score his first goal for his nation. And then at the weekend, he scored another brilliant goal. He's having an amazing season. And interestingly, so I'll give you a nugget from the data conference that I went to a couple of weeks ago. I was talking to some scouts and some recruitment analysts there, and it's good. These conferences are good, and these conversations are good to sense the trends that are emanating in football and in scouting and recruiting. And one of the things that I picked up on was analysts and scouts from across Europe are all looking at the Premier League, and they're looking at the things that we always talk about, which is like the physicality and the speed and the pace of the players and how incredibly athletic the midfielders are and the way they go 1v1. And they're all paying attention to that, and they all want to replicate it. Like, they all want to take that physical edge that the Premier League has, and they want to replicate it in their respective leagues. And there's been a couple of examples of this recently. So let's say Scott McTominay at Napoli has really opened a lot of eyes because of the way he can steam into the box and score headers and score goals. Like, he got quite a lot of goals, quite a lot of crucial goals last season, and helps them to win the title. People are paying attention to this kind of thing. And one of the trends that is going through at the moment in terms of when people are building, how people are building their shortlists and what managers want, is physical, athletic, tall number 8s. And our friend Assan here, I'm just going to refer to him as Assan from now, is one of those. He's about 1.90 m by the looks of it. He's a big guy. He's very mobile. He's very good in duels. He's very forward-thinking, really snappy in a way that you would expect a sort of gegenpressing Bundesliga midfielder, I think. And the way he hits the ball, the way he shoots, absolutely amazing. I've got some gradient shooting data here, formerly PFF for those of you in the US, to take a look at the shooting stuff, because I haven't seen every shot he's taken, obviously. But he's got the best shooting grade in the Bundesliga of any central midfielder, according to all the shots that he's taken this season. Wow. And he is the best shooter under pressure in their estimations too. And he's doing it left foot and right foot. It's so impressive. I'm trying to shake off the fact that some of the goals he scores look a lot like what Naby Keita did. I'm just trying to get that out of my brain and remove that, because that was a nightmare, partially because of injuries. And as long
a lot to do with injuries.
But I hate the fact that he gives me a little bit of that, especially because it's Leipzig as well. I need to get rid of that. Naby was much smaller as well. So hopefully Assan will be less brittle. But he looks like what I think a lot of coaches are moving towards in 2026, and he looks like the kind of player that is at the top of a lot of shortlists. The problem for those guys is that Leipzig already got him, and he was going to cost so much money.
Yeah. He does look really, really exciting, and they are amazing. I don't know how they do it, Leipzig. There's always this, well, it's because they've got an amazing scouting network and a big financial advantage over a lot of clubs, but their talent identification, not just immediately, but for a year or two down the line, is just so on point. You look at Nuso's really coming to the fore this year. You look at someone like Baumgartner as well, who's stepped up massively, and someone like Jan Diamande.
Up for the Scott McTominay Award. Christoph Baumgartner, the resurgence of the season, I think, in terms of what's going on at Leipzig.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's another very good chance.
There was a really nice, everything that Scouted Football do is great, but there was a lovely piece that they put together this season, and it referenced a previous piece they'd done where they'd interviewed the former kind of head of scouting in RB Leipzig, and they talked about the process, and they've got distinct player profiles at Leipzig, and they use the current first team players as the example of the profile, and then they take the youth players and they say, right, you're the protege, this is the profile you need to be, because this is how we play, this is how we always have this profile, you are the next one. So when Xavi Simons leaves, player X steps in, and they want player X to play like Xavi Simons, and they look at his data, and they look at the shots he's taking, the penalty box entries, where you're picking the ball up, and then they literally overlay it with Xavi Simons' data and say, you need to be more like that. They're literally yard for yard comparing. And so last year was a really weird year for Leipzig. It was the first year they've ever really failed, and they've come back swinging big time. But the reason they've got such a good succession plan is because they have such a succinct methodology in terms of how they plan forward. So Assan here would have just been player X, and he would have replaced someone else, and there's going to be another one in the academy right now that they're pointing and going, you're supposed to be that. Why aren't you picking up the ball here? You're doing your jewels are in the wrong place. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting with him is they signed him last summer from Schalke, and I think that there was a relative sense that he might step straight into the team, and he picked up a pretty bad injury that ruled him out for most of last year. He got an opportunity under Ole Werner at the start of this campaign, and he's just never looked back. I think it was against Cologne was his first start. And, you immediately see it, that kind of ranginess in the number 8 role. He is an incredible... from a physicality perspective, he's incredible, but technically in the way that he reads the game already, you're looking at it. And so, to your point, Dougie, about their scouting network, I think that they've been incredible at kind of reaching around the world and finding different stars. This was a very, very homegrown one from a Leipzig perspective. To just pick someone up in the Zweite Bundesliga and be like, yep, I think you fit all of the profiles. He looks a real talent. Now, Sam, to your point there about them kind of fitting player profiles, there is a sense, I think, sometimes with Leipzig, you have to be a little bit careful about taking them out of Leipzig because you're not asking for them to do exactly the same thing. But I think in this instance in particular, this skill set translates really nicely to pretty much what most teams would want from a number 8 at box to box.
I think so, because I think he'll just hold his own physically. So that's a major first step. And then the rest of it you can kind of coach him along with. So you don't really have any concerns from that perspective. He doesn't need to be brought into the game. He won't struggle physically. So he should be all right. I wouldn't have too many troubles with this. Of course, if the price starts to escalate out of control, that's when the concerns creep back in, as with any young player who is subject to a 60, 70, 80, 100 million pound. It's tough out there. Florian Wirtz, we hear you. So that's when the concerns will start to creep back in. But stylistically, this is one of those rare occasions where I don't think I'd be too worried about taking a player from Leipzig.
Fair enough. Right, on the topic of physicality, Nico Paz. I can't believe this guy is 6'1". I just don't believe it.
So I wonder where you're going with that.
He just doesn't look 6'1" to me at all. I feel like it's a lie. I think
It could be a lie.
It could be a lie.
Heights are not regulated in football.
Maybe it's the way he moves. Maybe I was going to say Serie A midfielders being a bit more diminutive, but actually look how many man mountains they've now got at places like Milan with Fofana and Rabiot and Juve with Locatelli and Koopmeiners. I don't think that necessarily translates. But
look at even Perisic on the wide arears.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. This is true. But Nico Paz feels like if you don't know about him now, you definitely will in the next couple of years. 21-year-old Argentinian, part of an amazing crop of emerging Argentine talent, along with Matias Soulé and Mastantuono, etc. Valentin Barco as well is having a great year at Strasbourg as well. He's already been capped 6 times by Argentina. He came through at Real Madrid. Well, he didn't initially, but he joined Real Madrid and La Fabrica in 2016, so a long time ago. And actually, I don't remember this at all, but he ended up playing 23 league minutes for them across 4 La Liga appearances off the bench. He played a Champions League game.
What?
Played a Champions League game against Braga
when
as well.
Fabinho played for Real Madrid and everyone's like, did he?
Yeah.
Nico was slightly different in that, like, I don't think they were quite sure what he was yet. And I think, at Como we've seen this emergence of this just incredibly silky number 10 who very much doesn't really feel like they fit anywhere else. But because of his physical profile, and I think it's a good one to point out, I think they were like, maybe he's a centre mid. He's a little bit, and not in terms of stylistically, but like the way that Scott McTominay was misprofiled, because he was like, oh, you're big. You must be a defensive midfielder. And I think that there was something probably quite similar with Nico Paz, where they were like, we're not quite sure where we should play you, actually, to get the best out of you. But that question has been answered.
Well, on the topic of which, and I think this is when he was even initially joining Real Madrid, he played as a centre-back. And then he played as a striker, and he played on the wing as well, and now he plays as a number 10, which is great. That's kind of what we've been talking about for Elliot Anderson, being able to play different roles, having an understanding.
I
mean, there's extreme cases. But someone like, and I know he's never really lived up to it, Juve, but Teun Koopmeiners and his versatility, it's very handy.
Yeah. And he's centre-back these days.
Well, exactly. He's now being used as a centre-back. But he joins Como for €6 million in 2024, so August 2024. There's reportedly a much talked about €10 million buyback clause. Real Madrid will just activate that, even if even if he doesn't become a central piece of their project going forward. And I think he's got a decent chance of it, but there is a lot of competition there. They'll buy him and sell him on.
Well, even last summer just gone, there was talk. Tottenham were briefly in for Nico Paz when they were scrambling around post Eza debacle, and basically it seems like, reading between the lines, it seems like Real Madrid told him, don't you dare. Like, even if Como accept the bid, you're not allowed, because you're coming back home in a year's time. That's what it felt like.
And also, I think it's probably helped him to have another year in Italy with the Como side that are really improving week on week under Cesc Fabregas as well. Like, last year was their first year back in Serie A since 2003. This is a side and a club that were in the 4th tier of Italian football in 2018-19. So it's been a remarkable rise, and a lot of that is financially motivated, and it's not, it's not a
fairy tale.
Yeah, it's not a fairy tale, but it's been a quick rise. And it was, I think his name's Ossian Roberts, the really highly rated Welsh, Ossian Roberts, who got them into Serie A. They then appoint Fabregas, and he's getting so much praise, and the work they did last year with players like Strafazza, who now has left, and Mark Kempf, the centre-back, etc. But it was really, and Assan arrived in January. He was very, very good as well. Maxence Caqueret, I used to love Maxence Caqueret at Lyon. But it was Nico Paz who was the star. I mean, 6 goals and 8 assists in 35 league games. Como, first year back since 2003, as I say, finished 10th. He got 14 league goals and assists. That was only 2 fewer than McTominay, who, ends up being Ballon d'Or nominee. And it was the same as players like De Ketelaere, who had a very good year for most of it last year for Atalanta, and Reinders obviously got that move to Man City. Now, fast forward to November 2025, they're 6th. They're only 4 points behind second place Milan. They've got the 5th best attack, and only Roma and Arsenal have conceded fewer than their 7 goals in the entirety of Europe. So they are legitimate contenders for a Champions League spot, and maybe, no, I'll leave it at that. Champions League spot. But this season, he's played all but 17 league minutes. We had some doubt about Wharton having a few injury issues in the past, let's say. I don't want to say injury prone. Nico Paz plays pretty much every minute of every game. 5 goals and 4 assists in 12 games. That's 2 more than next best Berardi, Boni and Pulisic, so the most in Serie A. And it's no fluke either. Only Moises, who after being so red hot last year, is really struggling this year, has taken more shots than him in Serie A. He's getting the same amount of shots on target per 90 as Eberechi Eze and Julian Alvarez, two players who are top. And only DeMarco has created more than his 29 chances. He also mixes it physically. He can dribble through tight spaces. He looks like he's going to be a star somewhere, whether it's going to be Real Madrid or not.
You really like him.
I really like him.
You can tell. Sometimes when Doogie just talks like a player, he starts rubbing his hands together and there's a glint in his eye. Like, I can always tell when Doogie likes a player and when he really likes a player. And
I don't think I have players that I don't like, though, to the same extent. Like, you've got some players that are on your naughty list, let's say. That sounds a bit sexual. Your list that you don't like.
Yeah.
And there's always one comes up every couple of weeks and you have to go, oh, Jack knows that I don't like this guy very much.
It's true. The fact that the frequency with which I reference does suggest that there are quite a lot of players I don't like, which may be a bit harsh. I don't know.
I think I'm just generally much more neutral, but there are a few players that really light my fires, and Nico Paz
If you
as well.
watch enough football, some people will just wind you up, though, on the pitch, won't they? Come on. They just will. I sound like Dean now.
You do, mate. You're getting old. You're getting old. You're about the same age now that Dean was when we started to be our football ranks, and you're picking up his
Was
tendencies.
Dean the notorious? I
Dean
don't
was
like
the
that
grub.
guy.
Yeah, he was
Right.
the cantankerous one. Jack and I were like, we love Leverkusen, they're chaos. And he was like, football, goalies aren't real.
Yeah, goalkeepers aren't players, is Dean's famous line. But yeah, I mean,
And then they become increasingly good at football and playing with their feet, and he got a bit stuck.
we've switched roles. Dean's much less grumpy since he's moved to San Diego, and you picked up the grumpy trait.
What is it? Fatherhood? Yeah.
There is a level, and like I really like Nico Paz as well, and I think De Catalaro is a good comparison point. That worries me a bit. There's the whole Kaka trait, like really tall number 10s who have that kind of ability to glide through pressure, and they're not exactly the same player, but there's hints of Kaka about the way that Nico Paz plays.
Does he run with the same amount of force, though, and gusto?
No,
because Kaka was like...
yeah.
he's not as quick, because Kaka was an unbelievably fast
But he just
footballer.
ran with such momentum.
Nico
Whereas-
Paz is a little bit silkier, I would say, in terms of sometimes the way that he kind of just like works his way out of pressure when there's 2 or 3 players around him. But there's definitely an element when you see a tall number 10 who can drive with the ball, that your mind immediately goes Kaka, and there's definitely a bit of that around Nico Paz, I think.
The dead balls as well. I didn't even mention them.
That's why he's got so many goals and assists, Doogie. Right, it's time for me to sneak a little mention in for a player that Doogie and I discussed it before we recorded, and Doogie wasn't sure if I could really realistically include him.
I can't remember who this is.
Wow, I must have made quite the impression on you. Jack, maybe you can tell me. Well, I'm going to say him anyway, obviously, and talk about him, but it's Kenan Yıldız. I'm Trojan horsing
In
Kenan
midfielders,
Yıldız.
this feels a bit loose, guys. I don't know what you guys think.
He's
I don't know.
slowly...
I feel like if you can include
Nico Paz,
Nico
yeah.
Paz, like you can include Kenan Yıldız, because
he's like-
ultimately, as much as he plays on the wing because he's forced out to, he is a number 10.
Yeah,
Like, we know that.
And he is gradually making his way into the central zones. Like, he kind of he ended up as a winger for Juve, as in getting his break. But he's starting to play as kind of one of those like wider 10s. And then sometimes, like, I flicked a Juve game on the other day and he was just like flat out playing as a 10 in a diamond. Like, and I've always had this thing with Yıldız. Like, I've been a big fan of his for a couple of years. And I've always looked at him and just thought, you look a bit like Dejan Kulusevski. Just like the style, it's the frame, it's even the way he hits the ball. Actually, it's the power. And I've always looked at him and gone, you actually might end up as like a Kulusevski kind of hybrid 8-10 winger. We don't know what you are exactly, but you will kill everyone in transition. You will carry the ball with power. You will score and you will assist, and your delivery is excellent because his Kenan Yıldız's crossing is really, really good. So if you would accept Dejan Kulusevski as an 8, which I think you should, then I think you have to accept Kenan Yıldız here. And what a player, by the way.
Yeah, I do like him a lot. I've actually got to eat a little bit of humble pie on Kenan Yıldız because I, in the summer, was talking about, I think it was under 21 left wingers or
Not a left winger, mate.
20-year-old people that played predominantly in that position. And I said I preferred Jamie Gittins at that time and Malek Fofana, which hasn't aged that well. Although Malek Fofana has been very good this year. And Jamie Gittins is starting to get it together slightly with
Nice
Chelsea.
cross at the weekend.
Nice cross at the weekend. And he's played very well on occasion for Chelsea. But I think Kenan Yıldız, the way he's assumed responsibility in a very poor Juve side, the amount of Juve fans that I see on my timeline just berating the quality of some of their players, which again feels really harsh. I don't know. I feel like Openda and Jonathan David, I don't think they were bad bets, but neither have worked out so far.
The problem with Openda is if he can't do the one thing he's good at, he can't do anything. He runs and he shoots.
Yeah.
So if that's not coming off, then what are you getting from him? And Jonathan David, funny one. I've always been a fan of David's versatility, and I'll never forget his role in that amazing Lille title win. But friend of the parish, Harry Brooks, hates Jonathan David.
Really?
He's so average. He's always complaining at me about how Jonathan David is.
Wow.
And so there are some out there that even before it's not really quite happening for him at Juve have been like, not the answer, not the answer.
This system does not help Jonathan David because he's neither the 9 in this sort of like weird 3-4-1-2-1 that they're playing, or a 10.
Because he kind of should be Yıldız, really,
He's
if he's going to
be in that he's just sort of stuck between the two. And I think if you built around him, then you could work something out. But unfortunately, if you don't, then he's not the kind of player that's plug and play. And that is a difficulty, I think, in a team that's very, very, very kind of transient at the moment. There's no real set roles. And I think that's really hurting him at the moment.
This isn't a conversation about Jonathan David. However, in the summer, he got linked to Inter. And I was like, you're obviously not good enough to start for Inter, but they've always had a really strong rotator for Lautaro to play just off the striker, and I was like, that would really suit you. And then Juve happened. I was like, well, he's not Vlahovic and he's not Yıldız, so I don't know. But anyway, they've given the keys to Yıldız here. They've kind of understood and have acknowledged that he's a bit of a super talent. And I think I did a projected Ballon d'Or ranking this time last year for who might be not Ballon d'Or, Golden Boy ranking.
Oh, nice.
For who might be in the running. His year didn't really go to plan, Kenan Yıldız, because Juventus just went kaput. But I'm like back on the hype train this year. I'm going to put him in my projections for the Golden Boy again when I do the article in a month, because I'm a big believer, and this time it's all going to work out. Don't worry about the fact that Juve are once again questionable. It's all going to work out for Kenan Yıldız.
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, from a player that I'm very hot on in Nico Paz to a player that I am intrigued by in Can Uzun. And he plays for an intriguing side as well in Eintracht Frankfurt. Really entertaining if you like chaos. I mean, only Bayern have scored more goals than them in the Bundesliga, and they've carried this over to the Champions League as well, where they kept on losing or winning 5-1. But in the Bundesliga...
This did happen. It's ridiculous how many 5-1s.
Yeah, but in the Bundesliga, only Heidenheim and I think it's Augsburg have conceded more goals than them as well. But this is a 20-year-old, number 10, plays for Eintracht Frankfurt. Dino Topmüller has been kind of rotating a little bit more in the last few weeks with Mario Götze and Chaibi as well. So he's not played as much recently, but he got off to an absolute flyer this season. And actually, looking a bit more into his backstory, quite interesting. So he came through at Nuremberg. Do you know an interesting thing about Nuremberg?
What kind of a question is that?
It's quite a lead up. Do you know what it is? It's like a pub quiz territory. They are second for Bundesliga titles behind Bayern. Yeah.
What?
I know. No, it's like none since about the 50s or 60s, but they've got more than Borussia Dortmund. Anyway, that's my thing about Nuremberg.
They cleaned up around the same time as Villa did.
Yeah.
About 70 years ago.
The Huddersfield town of the
yeah,
Bundesliga.
Exactly. But he was playing for their under-17 side at 15, bit of a prodigy. He scored 22 goals in 19 games as a 16-year-old for their under-17 side, promotes himself to the under-19 side, then gets into the senior side, scores a hat-trick, becomes the youngest ever to score a hat-trick in a Pokal game. He grabs 3 goals and 2 assists in that, and Eintracht Frankfurt say, we'll have a little bit of that. July 2024, joins Frankfurt, 5-year deal. Plays mainly off the bench last year, but still contributes 4 goals and 1 assist. Only Ekatike, Marmouche, and Christensen, randomly, former Leeds right back, exactly, scored more goals than them. But this year, he's become a little bit more key, particularly at the start of the season. If we'd had this podcast in September, I might have been a little bit hotter on him. But he still started 9 of 11 league games. Frankfurt currently sits 6th. They're up and down, as I've already said. But he has contributed 5 goals and 3 assists, but no goals and assists in his last 7 games. And his minutes have dried up. It feels like Topmüller is kind of expanding his options in those. He kind of plays 2 10s, and Götze and Chaibi are the guys in possession at the moment. There are some interesting elements to his game. He seems to pick up positions very well. There's the low socks. He's quite aesthetic to look at. and he has an amazing goal-scoring record as a junior, which suggests that he could probably translate that to a senior level. Is he explosive enough? Like, we've already seen Florian Wirtz look quite easily knocked off the ball in Premier League senses in some ways. I don't think he's ever going to be as skillful as Florian Wirtz. I worry about his lack of sort of acceleration and pace. But I'm intrigued to see where he goes in his career. And only Harry Kane and João Neves have overperformed their XG by more, which suggests that he maybe was on a little bit of a hot streak to start the season. I mean, Harry Kane's finishing this year has just been freakish given the amount of shots he's having. And João Neves has decided that he only scores bangers this year. So that's impressive that he managed to finish to that extent, but he's probably regressed to the mean in the last month or so.
Well, he hasn't scored for 7 games.
Yeah.
Well, one of those is a Turkey match, so I guess six for Eintracht. So I guess he probably has. Yeah, that is the regression right there. I haven't really seen much of him. There's one. I literally have seen one Eintracht game this year, and it was the Liverpool game, and that was a shambles. And also, he came off the bench.
Yeah.
So
you should watch him more. You should watch more Eintracht. They're absolutely unbelievably fun. Like, they are just great. Like, full stop.
Yeah.
Everything is chaos all the time. Like 100% of the time, chaos.
And you know, I like a bit of Eintracht in my life. Big fan. Well, was at some point.
Oh, yeah.
I went to a few Bundesliga media trips.
I thought that was something Villa related.
No. It just ended up. I've been to their stadium twice.
Looks nice.
It's awesome. It's a really cool place. I mean, look, interesting, but I can't comment. Mm-hmm. The fact that you presented them and gone, well, there's loads of problems, suggests that.
He feels less of a superstar than my other two suggestions for sure. I don't know. There was something about his early form at the start of this season which did excite me a lot, and he seemed like he had a lot of time in the box. Like, he'd often take one more dribble around a player and still manage to finish quite effectively. It didn't feel, often with a young player, it feels really rushed. It's like, this is my moment, I've got to seize it. And he was under pressure as well, given the calibre of player they've lost.
A lack of burst didn't hold Mesut Ozil back very far. So,
True.
It doesn't. It's not a reason. I know. I appreciate that the game has changed somewhat in terms of the physicality and the speed of it, but it's not a complete.
Yeah. Although Ozil, in a weird way, was so languid, but he could transition quite effectively. He just wasn't quick himself.
Yeah. Chandler's
Yeah. But he just doesn't look like he's going to cover ever as much ground. But yeah, let's see what happens.
We'll see, I guess. We'll see. Right, that's 6 names.
Yeah.
There is a 7th.
Oh.
It's for Jack to discuss.
Oh.
Ooh. Greeted with a big grin.
I was waiting. Waiting for someone to bring him up.
João Gomes.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were going to go.
What do you think?
want to talk about?
I thought you were going to go with who I genuinely believe is going to be the breakout midfielder of this generation.
Oh.
Victor Froholdt.
Oh, no, we're not interested in him. Sorry.
Who is
I'd like to hear about him.
Going to be an absolute superstar. I did talk about him in real depth. He was the top of my list in the breakout stars on Ranks FC. So I would recommend that you go and have a listen on that one. But
the too long didn't read on Victor Froholdt is he's 6'2", runs like Kante, and that's enough.
He's 6'2", runs like Kante, scores and picks up assists. Like he's absolutely unbelievable. When you were actually the player that you compare him to in all of this list is Elliot Anderson. Mm-hmm. Like he's a very similar type of profile, but I think a little bit more aesthetically pleasing on the ball. He's walked into this Porto team from Copenhagen and has just been like my team now, and the entire thing runs through Victor Froholdt. He is superstar in waiting, and I can't speak highly enough of him. I was absolutely devastated having gone to that Porto game at the weekend that he wasn't in the squad, but he's played basically every minute of every other game, so I can understand why Farioli gave him a rest, but he is genuinely
he was
the player.
Clinically sad because he missed out on the World Cup.
Yeah, maybe. It's one of those, but like I genuinely think in this conversation he's the one I would be looking at in terms of all of those players. I think, especially in terms of deeper line midfielders where we started, he was the one for me that jumps out as the kind of next big thing player.
So I was more than happy for you to talk about Victor Froholdt. I knew you'd bring him up. The João Gomes thing was serious though. So while I knew we'd be talking about Froholdt, Gomes has been linked to Man United by our old friend Dean Jones in the last 24 hours. You're a big fan of him. Not many people watch Wolves, including I haven't seen much Wolves this season. I'm a fan of him, but I thought you'd be best placed to speak to him because Jonesy boy has linked him to Man United for £50 million.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a ball-winning machine, right? Yeah. Like in fact, you talked about Kante kind of players there. João Gomes is that kind of player. Like he is someone who covers an immense amount of ground, who wins duels in the middle of the park. The question I would have from a United perspective is whether the aerial physicality of someone like a Casemiro could be replaced by a kind of diminutive ball winner type. Now, that's not to say that he wouldn't necessarily translate. I think that he would be very good in a lot of different midfields, but I think that would hang over it a little bit in terms of United are a little bit weak aerially in the middle of the park at the moment, and the fact that Casemiro is in there winning headers and winning kind of second balls in the aerial perspective is one of the things that I think has made them better this year. And they have a player who was really good at covering ground in Manuel Ugarte, who was, that kind of player who hasn't translated necessarily to the same extent. And I thought he would. That's another one I will have to eat humble pie on. I really thought that would work once Amorim came in there. And it really just hasn't. I think João Gomes is a really, really good player. I think you have to pair him with someone smart. And I'm not sure that, when we talk about Kante, it is easy to forget the kind of Kante-Matic dynamic that worked so well for Chelsea, because Matic was like, I'll do the aerial stuff, you do everything else. And it worked beautifully because it gave Kante that kind of platform to like burst forward, win balls in the second half. We talked about this a lot on Ranks back in the day, Sam, that Kante was kind of an 8, a defensive-minded 8, but an 8.
Yeah. And we always hated the put him at 6. No, don't put him at 6.
You don't want him to have all of the ball.
Don't tie him down.
Yeah. You don't want him to have all that much of the ball. I think João Gomes is a similar player, and actually that's why I quite like the Andre thing, because you want Andre to have all the ball. The two of them are quite diminutive as a partnership, right? But in terms of one player to go and destroy and one player to sit and dictate, Andre and João Gomes should work in that regard. I just think that they're being overrun by physicality. So I like João Gomes a lot, and I think that he would be a good addition to a Manchester United midfield, for example, off the back of that. But I think you'd probably have to think about who you pair him with. And actually, in that kind of situation, if he's coming in as a Casemiro replacement, I'd have question marks. If he came in to play alongside Casemiro in a 2, then I think you might be onto something, because actually that would give him the platform to get around and do the things he's really good at, which is just putting out fires left, right and centre.
Might send you back to square one on the old press resistance on the ball, though. Like, can you progress the ball through the thirds if you have Gomes and Casemiro? It's probably not good enough for the top team. So that's a tricky one. That's a really tricky one, because you have to balance all the needs of the team. And you're right, you can't take Casemiro out, because even at set pieces, he's really, really important. It's like with to pull a Villa comparison in, when you had Douglas Luiz or Yuri Tielemans, they're both pretty small guys. So you would always need to make sure that their partner is very tenacious, but also like literally big. So Camara is plus 6 foot plus, Onana is like 6'6", and Villa have recruited very specifically to make sure that partnership works really well. So you always have to bear that in mind, and what your knock-on effect is for set pieces, which at 5'9", João Gomes is basically a bit of a problem there. Well, there you go then. Maybe not for Man United in the January window then.
Well, my issue is, I've got loads of issues, but my issue with transfers going forward is, like, a lot of the focus over the next, up until the next summer will be on Liverpool and Man United, you'd have thought. Liverpool have just spent over £400 million, and I find it really difficult to choose the players that Man United should sign, because I'm not sure whether Ruben Amorim will be here in a year's time. I mean, results would have to drastically improve, and it does feel like it's a case of every couple of weeks it's 1 step forward, sometimes 2 step backs, maybe 2 forward, 1 back. It just, the lack of consistent progression doesn't feel appropriate for a manager that's been in for over a year now.
They are a question mark. They are consistently a puzzle. I never know how to feel about them. Even for this episode, I pitched to Doogie, maybe we do an episode like how good are Man United, and it was a genuine question. The problem with that episode is you don't really know where to go with it, and I was pretty certain they were going to beat Everton even before the red card on Monday night, and they just didn't. Sometimes I see them show up and they just explode out of the blocks and they play 20 minutes of fast, furious football like a hurricane, and sometimes they barely even get started, and I just can't put my finger on exactly what they are at the moment. So it is difficult. The one thing I am pretty sure of is they can afford new players. They tried to tell us in the summer they were poor. No one believed them, and then they ended up spending £200 million on 3 forwards. I reckon they still got money, so they will be throwing money at the problems. Just they have to do it smartly.
They seem to have money for Baleba if they wanted him, and they decided that was too big a risk. And you know what? It looks like a smart decision now, but I think that there is money in the tank. I think the thing with the United performance on Monday in particular was that for the first time since the Europa League final, I came out of that game and I was like 0 positives. I think every game for Man United this season, okay, if you take the Grimsby debacle out of it, but I think you can take that debacle out of it in terms of just
Proper football weather, that.
Yeah, I mean, just one. I think that you can just be like one of those days at the office, and ultimately United are now susceptible to those in the same way that teams in the middle of the pack in the Premier League are, in a way that teams at the very top aren't. But actually, that game was the first one I looked at and was like, I don't know what to take from that, from a Manchester United perspective. And that's what felt, I think, so much like regression rather than the result, because, things like that can happen. Everton are a team that want to defend on the edge of their own box, who are good at that kind of thing. And United didn't have the answers. But I think the issue was the performance as opposed to the result.
The only thing I could take from it, and it's spurious at best, because it doesn't even mean anything, but Mateus Cunha wasn't there, what could have been. And if that's the best you can do, then what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Well,
if I was going for anyone for Man United, though, it'd be Elliot Anderson.
Yeah, I would. That's who I would spend the money on too, for sure. Is there anybody else at the top, towards the top of the table across the leagues that you think are just crying out for one of the players that we've been talking about?
I think I'd love to see Nico Paz anywhere. But to be honest, he might be in the Champions League with Como next year. He won't be. He'll be at Real Madrid on the bench, but he might get sold again or loaned or something. He actually feels like someone that could be loaned to a Premier League club next year by Real Madrid. So watch this space.
Interesting. Right. Okay. Well, a good discussion on some good young players.
I enjoyed
between
it.
three fine gentlemen.
Oh.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Thank you, Doogie.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Sam.
Sorry, thank you, Morgoth.
Yeah, thanks very much. Outside of Elliot Anderson, if I had the money to spend on any of those, it would be Froholdt. I really, really do believe that he is going to be a superstar.
God damn, he'd be expensive. He just cost quite a lot for Porto, for Copenhagen terms. For
it was about 20 million euros, I think.
Yeah, it's towards the top end of a possible price for anyone from the Danish Superliga. So, yeah, Porto are gonna 3 or 4x that immediately. You know what they're like. Fantastic stuff. Right. Thank you, Rack Squad. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you same time next week.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.